bring some pageantry of our own to the celebration. Those rabbis celebrating their golden anniversary of ordination. Right? I tried to think of possible names for this golden anniversary moment. I thought of, by the way, Ziknei Yovel, but I don't know. That didn't seem quite right. That couldn't get away from this week's parashah. Thought of, idea of idolizing our golden colleagues, but the Hebrew Aglei HaZahav just was not going to be appropriate. I didn't think either in terms of acknowledging this esteemed and august group. Well, perhaps, by the way, some of you can provide suggestions for the ceremony for future years, what we might call it. Let me just say, it is such an honor as president of the RA to be able to acknowledge and help honor this class of 1970. And it was a pleasure to hear them talking beforehand and the stories they had as they celebrate their 50 years since ordination. We read in Pirkei Avot, Ben Hamishim Leitzah, at 50 for council. As I looked at the names of the individuals, I was truly amazed by the number of luminaries, scholars, mensches that are included in this class. My decision to become a rabbi was inspired by one particular rabbi, Rabbi Elliot Dorff in this group. And since becoming a rabbi, I've been inspired by many others that we are honoring today. Each of them with wisdom and the role model that still inspires the lives of their younger colleagues. For many of the colleagues in this remarkable group, there's been a life dedicated to serving the Jewish people. For some, it's been sharing Jewish knowledge with the world, or for all, it's been sharing Jewish sensitivity as they sought to fulfill the precept of the Taken Olam b'Malchut Shaddai, to really improve this world. Respected teachers, scholars, authors, day school educators, Jewish organizational leaders, campus rabbis, transformers of our movement in Israel, congregational rabbis. You can read about them, by the way, in the RA convention booklet that was sent out to you that you should have, and you can read for some of their stories that they shared with us. We want to make sure that you're on mute if you can, just as a reminder. It'll help us that if you're not on mute. As we begin our program, right, with a video of the nominees for the best performance by a rabbi in the television series of life. Here we go.
One of the things I learned from Professor Lieberman, alav Shalom, he always asked, what is the difference between a wise person and a clever person? A wise man does not fall in a hole, but a clever man can figure a way out. Be wise. I wish I'd followed his advice.
Neil Gilman is responsible for me becoming a rabbi. Neil continually received complaints from my Talmud professor that I was unprepared. Rather than expelling me, as the teacher suggested, Neil returned to his office nightly and became my study partner for a month. Neil decided that he wasn't going to let me fail, and he decided that he was going to do something about it. And rather than saying, study harder, do more, he said, let me see if I can help you learn.
At least at one point, they assigned us to somebody who was supposed to really be a help to us. I was assigned Ismar Schwartz. Ismar at that time was just, quote, just a historian. For me, he was someone to be a sounding board. Sharon and I married early, as many of the people did at that time. We had some question about when you have a child, when you have 7 years ahead of you, right? So I went to Ismar, and Ismar was really very kind. He listed on a yellow pad all the things, all the reasons, well, he's a Yeki, all the reasons that we weren't supposed to have a child, right? And I went home dutifully with my yellow pad, and we talked about it. And then, of course, 9 months later, we had a baby. He was very effective.
Rabbi Zucker, Dr. Zucker, got us mixed up. He didn't know who we were. So whenever he would call on Silton in class, I was the one who read. And when he would call on Winter, It was Paul who was the one who read.
One day at the end of classes, I was walking down the hall and Professor Kadushin came up to me and asked me if we could talk. I said, sure. We went downstairs together, and when we were on the steps in front of JTS, we stopped and Professor Kadushin turned to me and said, what do you want to talk about? And I was surprised because I thought he wanted to speak with me. Oh, he said, when I saw you in the hall, you looked like you could use someone to speak with.
I will remember these words that Professor Heschel said to me, even more than I remember being in his class. And that is, it was said in a sixth floor office, a very crowded, book-filled office. And I remember Professor Heschel's eyes focusing on me so intently.
My recollection of Professor Rabbi Chaim Zalman Dimitrovsky, Alav Shalom, and he would get up, go out, go to his office next door, and come back and Hine HaSefer, Ze lo sheli, Ze b'Sefer, okay? Tikru b'Sefer, ein tzorech lichtov. The man's integrity was impeccable. And he was such a humble guy.
I had a discussion with Professor Heschel, who was also opposed to the Vietnam War, and he emphasized for me that it was so important to have rabbis to be in the military to meet the needs of Jewish personnel.
I'm doing what I'm doing now because of the Jewish Theological Seminary, because of a lot of other things, because of Morton Siegel, because of other people, and especially because of Moshe Chayil right next to me. But I say without a moment's hesitation that if I had not gone to JTS, they skipped me a year, so after the Talmud thing, so I did it in 4 years. If I had not gone to JTS and not become a conservative rabbi, I really believe that an overwhelming number of things I did as the acting youth director from 67 till 70, when I graduated and became a real director, they took the acting away. They just wouldn't have happened.
I think a majority of the faculty members lived right near the seminary, and a very high percentage of rabbinical students lived there, either in the dormitory or in apartments nearby. We had a chance to be together. We had a chance to be influenced by each other. The friendships that we formed have lasted a lifetime. Truth is that, especially with the students, we grew in our observance together because we spent Shabbat and holidays together, either in each other's apartments or at the seminary for services. And we all had the chance to experiment with our observance and to grow together. So the community aspect of that was critical for me.
So one of the things is a number of the students became radicalized, and they resented the fact that Lieberman took role. And so David Kogan, who was also wonderful, these names are people that maybe you know of them, he was a wonderful, wonderful person. He was a person that we were able to be our liaison with the upper people, with Finkelstein, Lieberman, and so forth. So somebody went to Kogan, and Kogan spoke with Lieberman, and one day Kogan came in and said, Dr. Lieberman agrees he will no longer take role. That was the 60s. Anyway, so Lieberman comes in, and we sit down, and he says, Goldstein, redo the Gemara. He used to call on people, that's how he would say, redo the Gemara. No answer. Khan, redo the Gemara. Levy, redo the Gemara. Greenberg, redo the Gemara. Another two names, no answer. He says, you see, I don't have to take roll to know who is here and who is not here.
When I came to Albany, the There was a tradition set by Shraga Arian of blessed memory of dressing up for Purim. Okay, and so I had to continue that tradition. I was then the education director. So I went to the costumer, which is a big store here, and I came one year as Miss Piggy with pink tights. Okay, and I have 7 kids, thank God, wonderful kids, all B'nai Torah. And my kid said, Abba, if you ever wear those tights again, we're never coming to shul.
I got a Danforth Fellowship, so I did a doctorate while I was also in rabbinical school. And then I went to what was then called the University of Judaism, which I thought I was going to be at for 2 years. And then I was going to get serious and take a congregation in the Midwest where I had grown up. Well, 50 years later, I have yet to become serious. That's one way of looking at it. The other way is that in my next life, I'm going to be a congregational rabbi.
If I had to talk about legacy, I would say that amongst the legacies are the pilgrimage I built, by the way, on the US-wide pilgrimage that Morton Siegel developed. But I was able to do things, if you build on the shoulders of somebody like that, you can really do a lot. And the TIV, which I think is probably one of the it's one of the most effective programs in the movement in terms of Aliyah, and etc.
Do it all. Put your fingers into the water in as many different areas as you can and find out what you like and go for it.
Someone once quipped, and they're right, it's no job for a Jewish boy. And persevere. That's, I think, the most important thing I could urge a young colleague.
They should be healthy and strong and look back with as much joy at their careers as I did. I feel very grateful for my colleagues and what I experienced with them as fellow classmates. I think rabbinical school today is better in lots of ways than in our years, in I think a whole host of ways. I see these young rabbis coming into our communities, and I'm awfully impressed.
It's a very tough challenge to be a rabbi because you really have to speak from your heart and your mind and tradition and not just what everybody says.
I have loved teaching rabbinical students throughout all these 50 years. My trust in the future of the movement and the future of Judaism generally is the wonderful people I've met who were rabbinical students throughout all of the years. And if Judaism is in their hands, as it is, I'm really very reassured about it.
And now, it's my pleasure to be able to announce the winners for this evening's celebration of outstanding performance by a rabbi, 50 years in the rabbinate. It's my pleasure. I'll acknowledge them and hopefully we'll see them briefly on screen. Rabbi Shalom Bronstein, Rabbi Elliot Dorff, Rabbi Jerry Epstein, Rabbi Wayne Franklin, Rabbi Paul Freedman, Rabbi Meir Gruber, Rabbi Jim Lebeau, Rabbi Dov Lerner, Rabbi Jonathan Porath, Rabbi Joel Rembaum, Rabbi Herbert Schwartz, Rabbi Paul Silton, Rabbi Kenneth Tarlow, Rabbi Edmund Winter, Rabbi Herbert Yoskowitz. All right, those that were not able to join us today, I'll just acknowledge Rabbis David Berner, Rabbi Joel Chernikoff, Rabbi Mark Cohen, Rabbi Barry Cytron, Rabbi Steve Glazer, Rabbi Reuben Kimmelman, Rabbi Michael Laxmeter, Rabbi Ivan Marcus, Rabbi Henry Michaelman, Rabbi Marvin Rose, Rabbi Elliot Rosen, Rabbi Max Roth, and Rabbi Elliot Spiegel. And then for those who have passed away since their ordination, we remember them as well. And I thought that rather than doing an El Male in Hebrew and everybody standing and feeling there's a moment there that of transition, let me just read the English of an El Male so we can bring to memory those golden anniversary students for the life that they lived: Rabbi Leonard Lifshin, Rabbi Gary Listokin, Rabbi Stephen Shah, Rabbi Byron Sherwin, and Rabbi Arnold Turchik. Exalted, compassionate God, grant perfect peace among the holy and pure your sheltering presence, the souls of our beloved who have gone to their eternal home. May the memories of these rabbis, for their families, for our community, for all of us, endure as inspiration. They who led lives of charity and goodness, may their souls be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May they rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen. And now, speaking on behalf of the class and with a great anticipation, it's my pleasure to be able to acknowledge my teacher from LA Hebrew High School many, many years ago, and who has been through and throughout my life, the Jewish journey, my journey as a rabbi, the esteemed, honorable Dr. Rabbi Joel Rembaum.
Thank you, Stuart. I must say, I shep nachas from Stuart Vogel. And watching him develop over the years here in Southern California has been a wonderful thing for me. And when he assumed the presidency, I really, really was very proud. Kol hakavod lecha. Mazel tov, yesher koach, and yesher koach to all of us. We're here, Baruch Hashem. It's so wonderful to see everyone. Such memories, it's just hard to put into words. And I want to thank Ilana and Max and your team for the wonderful job you have done with all of the various aspects of this presentation. And a special mazel tov to our beloved colleague, Rabbi Elliot Dorff, who along with Pamela Barmash will be honored tomorrow for their accomplishments with the CJLS, which has always been very close to my heart. So now that I've said these few words, I can go into my remarks. The class of 1970 is among the largest classes to be ordained at the Jewish Theological Seminary. But pride in numbers is meaningless unless it can be surpassed by pride in achievement and contributions to the community. I suggest that we, as members of the class of 70, have the right to take pride in what we have accomplished individually and collectively. I'll be speaking in generalities, realizing that not all of us that we're engaged in everything to which I will refer, but that's okay, because we all should shep nachas from what we and our colleagues have done. Also, this is based on my recollection, so it may be incomplete, and for this I apologize. So here are some of the things that we accomplished while students at JTS. First and foremost, we zealously fulfilled the first mitzvah in the Torah. By the time we graduated, we were raising 24 children. And that is an accurate number compiled by someone in the class when we graduated.
There are those among us who were taking courses in other disciplines, preparing for careers in education, academics, and others while completing their studies for rabbinic ordination. Number of us were in the JTS Talmud program with an eye toward an academic career in Jewish studies. Some of us were staffing important LTF and USY positions and serving as JTS administrative assistants. When the 1968 campus revolution hit JTS, we served on the student faculty committee, created to plan curricular and programmatic reform for the seminary for the rabbinical school. And what we began, miracle of miracles, was actually implemented after we left. We were among the leaders in organizing new worship and educational experiences on campus. For the first time, we had student-led Simchas Torah services that included dancing with the Torahs on Broadway. Some of you may remember that. And for the first time, we celebrated Yom HaAtzmaut liturgically. We said Hallel. And we celebrated it also with a student-organized study day focusing on Eretz Yisrael. A member of our class served as president of the rabbinical school student body. Some of us were true activists in the Soviet Jewry campaign. We were among the organizers of the traditional and halachic Grant's Tomb Shabbat afternoon football game, which featured a renowned play that has gone down in the annals of football history, the Dorff play. Now, let me explain. Many of us appreciate Elliot for what goes on in his head and his neshama. But I will tell you that Elliot Dorff in his heart is a football player. The Dorff play worked this way. Remember, we were doing this on the plaza in front of Grant's Tomb. The line would line up, quarterback behind, and Elliot played left end. The entire line would sweep to the left, moving all of the defense in that direction. Elliot would count to three. 1, 2, 3. Then he would proceed to amble to the right, behind everyone who was moving to the left. Now, Elliot is not the fastest runner in the world. He will be quick to admit that. But the fact is, it was wide open. The quarterback would throw him the ball, and he would head for the end zone. Eventually, somebody from the defense would realize that they had been snookered, and they would run after him and touch him, and of course, the play was over. However, whether he scored a touchdown or not, we moved forward toward the goal line. That was the Dorff play, and as I say, it is how many of us have a football play named for us? And Elliot, we will be ever grateful to you for your Dorff play. That's all true. And by the way, finally, understanding the needs of the times, we all agreed to take service pulpits. Remember this? Positions that had not been filled during the previous 2 years, that paid no more than the salary of armed forces chaplains. And the maximum salary was $15,000 a year. And some of us even got paid less. Now, here are some of the examples of what we accomplished as rabbis. We took seriously our mandate as Rav and made teaching Torah the centerpiece of our rabbinate, regardless of how that was expressed. We took seriously our mandate to find the Tzelem Elohim in all people and to be compassionate caregivers when called upon. Some of us made Aliyah and contributed meaningfully to our communities and institutions in Israel and to the Masorti movement. Many of us distinguished ourselves as pulpit rabbis, leading our congregations into an era of gender equality, alternative minyanim, new modes of programming. We welcomed Jews by choice into our communities, and we participated in the successful effort to bring women into the rabbinate and the cantorate. We were activists in opening new doors in interfaith and interracial dialogue. We were in the front line as Jewish educators and congregational rabbis in expanding day school education and developing new definitions of supplemental educational experiences for our children. We urge the parents of our communities to send their kids to Ramah and developed funds to provide Ramah scholarships. We welcome the LGBTQ Jews into all facets of communal and family life experiences and as rabbis, cantors, educators, directors, and lay leaders. We played significant roles as academics in the expansion of Jewish studies on college campuses and establishes international reputations as experts in our respective fields. We created expanded roles for chaplains in hospitals, homes for the aging, and the like. And as volunteers and professionals, we served as leaders of conservative Jewish organizations, United Synagogue, USY, Rabbinical Assembly, Ramah, the CJLS, and their equivalents in Israel. And we served as volunteers in the broader community as well. I conclude with a bracha, familiar to many, if not all of us, that I hope expresses the warm feelings we have for one another and the hopes for good things for all of us in the years that lie ahead. It's from Bavli Brachot 16b. Rabbi Elazar Bakar de Misayim Tzlote Amar Hachi. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu shetishaken b'fureinu ahava v'yachva b'shalom v'rayut v'tarbeh gvuleinu b'talmidim v'tatzliach sofenu acharit v'tikva v'tasim chelkenu b'gan Eden v'taknenu b'chaber tov v'yetzer tov be'olamecha v'nashkim v'nimtza yichul levaveinu lira et shmecha v'tavo lefanecha chorat nafshenu l'tova. After Rabbi Elazar concluded his prayer, he said, "May it be your will, Lord our God, to cause love and companionship, peace and friendship to dwell in our lot. And may you make our borders rich in disciples and cause us to ultimately succeed, that we will have a good end and hope. And may you set our portion in the Garden of Eden, and may you establish for us a good companion and a good inclination in your world. And may we rise early and find aspiration of our hearts to fear your name. And may the satisfaction of our souls come before you. Amen. Ken yehi ratzon. Mazal tov to all of us.
Amen, Joel. Wow, that was beautiful. By the way, with so many screens and so many pictures, I did not see that Rabbi Barry Cytron is, in fact, on with us. And so I just want to call him by name and acknowledge his presence, Max. And we're going to find him and spotlight. There you are, right? Distinguished colleague. Such a pleasure and honor to have you with us today as well in this class. Those of you who were recognized today, hold up your certificates of acknowledgement. Go ahead, just wave them for everybody to see. All right, go, just show them along. All right. Yasher Koch Mazal Tov, really, just so nice to share with all of you. You continue to inspire us, right? Ad Mea V'Esrim. We will celebrate with you. We're going to transition now, by the way, to our annual meeting in just a couple minutes. So we hope that you'll all stay there and hear about the wonderful news about the RA and our remarkable CEO, Rabbi Jacob Blumenthal. See you back in just a minute.